Elon, can we talk about the events of, was it last weekend, the whole Ukraine Starlink thing? Can you give us like the TikTok of like what's going on and like how you're being forced to decide? But like, what is it like in that decision room, if there was one, or wherever you were, where you're trying to figure out, am I keeping this on? Do I turn it off? What is going on? People must have been bombarding you. Whatever you can share about what that was like, how you made the decision.
Yeah, I was actually mistaken a little bit in his understanding of the situation. Obviously, SpaceX have provided Starlink connectivity to Ukraine really since the beginning of the war. We're really within, I think, a few days of the war starting. And as the Ukrainian government said, the Starlink was instrumental in the defense of Ukraine. So, they've said that really many times, although the media forgets to mention that. And in fact, they've said it on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter.
It's going to take a while to get that right, yeah. Take a little time.
So, you don't have to take my word for it. You can just read what they posted. So Starlink has been incredibly helpful to the Ukraine war effort. We've gone out of pocket very significantly to help them. But at the time this happened, the region around Crimea was actually turned off. Now, the reason it was turned off was actually originally was because the United States has sanctions against Russia, and we're not allowed to actually, and that includes Crimea in the sanctions, and we're not allowed to actually turn on connectivity to a sanctioned country without explicit government approval, which we did not have from the U.S. government. So basically, Ukraine didn't give us any advance warning or heads up or anything. But we just got the sort of urgent calls from the Ukrainian government saying that we needed to turn on Crimea. It's like in the middle of the night, basically. And we're like, what are you talking about?
You up?
What's it for? We basically figured out that this was kind of like a Pearl Harbor type attack on Sevastopol, on the Russian fleet in Sevastopol. So they're really asking us to really proactively take part in a major act of war. While we certainly have huge support for the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian government is not in charge of U.S. People or companies. That's not how it works.
Yeah. And Elon, if I could just...
But I should say that, although I'm not President Biden's biggest fan, if I had received a presidential directive to turn it on, I would have done so, because I do regard the president as the chief executive officer of the country. Whether I want that person to be the president or not, I still respect the office. And so if I gotten a request from the president type of thing, from the American president, to be clear, then I would have turned it on, but no such request came through.
That's a really interesting point. And what Chamath is referring to is you're now being attacked. I saw there was there's Jake Tapper the other day on CNN interviewing our Secretary of State. He was all lathered up, basically attacking you for this. David.
To his credit, Secretary Blinken was actually quite supportive, despite the absurd, accusations and leading questions of Jake Tapper on CNN.
Yeah, he didn't take the bait, to his credit.
To Secretary Blinken in this regard for not, taking the bait at all.
Yeah. Well, to me, this is an example of no good deed goes unpunished. Because if you had never given...
I hope some good deeds back go unpunished.
I mean, if you had never given Starlink,
just aspire to that,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, my point is just if you had never given Starlink to the Ukrainian government for free, voluntarily, you just volunteered it, then no one would be attacking you right now for not turning it on so they could do their attack on Crimea.
Yeah.
Also, one other thing I'll note is that your reason for not turning it on, which is you don't want to be part of what could be a major escalation, was exactly the reason the Biden administration did not give ATACMS missiles to Ukraine at that point in the war. Now, they may be changing their minds, but they were very worried about an attack, the administration was, an attack on Crimea, triggering some huge escalation in this war. So not only did you not receive a directive from President Biden, your thinking was very much in line with theirs at the time, and
Right,
yet,
exactly.
and you're being attacked for that now.
There's something you mentioned, which is that you did this at a lot of economic cost to SpaceX. Can you just talk about that for a second? Because I'm not sure people understand who's paying for what right now and who hasn't been paid, and et cetera. Et cetera.
There's well, I should say, like a lot of people have contributed to the effort. Starlink is the fundamental communication backbone of the Ukrainian government and essential services like first responders and that kind of thing. And it, is used, we hope relatively peacefully on the war front. It is the only thing that works on the war front. Everything else is being jammed by the Russians. So it is the only thing that works, not one of the things. But I think you have to sort of think of, say, taking the actual example of Pearl Harbor and say, like, well, how did that work out for Japan? It didn't work out well at all.
Right.
Because it was a tactical victory, a strategic defeat. It enraged the American public, who sort of naturally wanted vengeance for this act, this act. And I think that while I don't think it's on the same scale, that there was certainly that potential of sort of a mini Pearl Harbor, with resulting in a mass escalation of hostilities. But not this would not defeat Russia. It would enrage Russia.
Do you donate? Do you donate the network, or do they pay you for it?
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm actually not sure what the final accounting is at this point, but I think at one point you calculated our sort of cost of supporting things at roughly $100 million. Now the $100 million does not count the massive risk to the entire Starlink constellation, because Russia would like to have the entire thing deleted. Nobody's compensating us for that. So if we were to get, say, our control center were take down in a cyber attack, they command all the satellites to the orbit and destroy the entire system, or use anti-satellite weapons. These are pretty significant risks, for which we have not received any compensation, and obviously would be catastrophic to the entire Starlink system, which is approaching $10 billion.
Elon, do you think the current government
I don't
administration...
think anyone's saying, hey, $10 billion. Yeah. And then, actually, I'd say one of the rather vexing things was, as you've seen there's a very large amount of money that's been appropriated for Ukraine. I'm not sure what the total is at this point, but it must be close to 100 billion, or somewhere between 80 and 100 billion. Now all of the other sort of providers, U.S. providers of support to Ukraine are being paid. So then, why should SpaceX be excluded? That doesn't make sense. We're doing one of the most valuable things, and yet are getting the least money. This is absurd. But despite that, we're still happy to keep going. And